Double tap. All you, boo.
Hi there! So I'm the presenter for tonight for Nomad Connection. My name is Mandish. I'm from Sydney. I'm 22 and I have lived in Colombia for the past year. Anyway, so Nomad Connection is our little baby. It's our show that we're doing with a bunch of quirky foreigners in Colombia who want to just share their opinions and their stories. Hello, hi. So today we're going to talk about worldwide cultural perceptions. So we're going to talk about what culture means to us, what perceptions we have of our own culture, and what we think of other cultures. And so let's get started. I want to take you in to meet the other nomads. And here we go. There's Janelle. Hello. Hey guys. We're missing two nomads today, but hopefully we won't.
Hello, Chris.
Yes.
Hey there.
Hello.
Sad panda.
Okay, guys. So, culture. What is it? How do we define it? Who wants to go? Should we just go around? We'll go around.
Are we going around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't ready.
I think that's the best way because everybody will add something, and
Yeah.
I mean, to start off with, culture is something that is.
That's the German guy. You're looking at him.
And I'm
Sorry.
I'm the only guy. Look at.
You're the only guy today.
Yeah, look at the harem. No, I'm pretty fine today. I'm lucky. So what is culture? Culture is constituted of many things. It's the things that might be quite obvious if you look at how the people dress, how they behave, how they talk, what they eat, how they interact among each other. But then it's also something more like the self-perception, I guess, of a culture, of your own country. Because I guess like you can say there is the Latin American culture, and then there is the American culture, and then there's the
Sorry,
European
I'm not
culture.
sure what you mean by cocaine, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Daniel.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, cocaine, maybe that's also part of like the perception of Colombia, but I mean, we can talk about that later. I think I would just pass
Yes.
on.
I'm not gonna lie, I straight cheated. So I'm gonna read you a definition of culture. You're welcome. I read real good. Okay.
She's a writer. She reads as well.
I
Double
know, my
whammy.
English is fab. Okay. A culture is a way of life of a group of people, the behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that they accept
I
generally
know.
without thinking about them. Okay, great. That was my definition.
Quite brief.
Well, to me, culture is identity. Culture is belonging, and culture is very personal.
Okay.
For me, culture, I'm reading this very nice book. It's from an anthropologist. I don't really remember his name, but he's a French American guy. And he talks about symbols. Like, for example, you have this concept of beauty, and then depending on your culture is how the meaning you give to beauty. So for me, that's kind of a very strong thing about culture, like what it means, the different concepts that you use around, like how it means, what it means for a certain people, no? A certain group of people. Yeah, that's my
Okay.
definition.
Hello,
Lauren.
my culture studies teacher, Janelle. My name is Janelle. Yeah, I hope you got your doctorate. Culture for me, I mean, I guess if we're talking about Colombia, it's the Latino culture of, I don't know, the flavor, the dance, the music, the language, the attitude, the food. Yeah, I think all of that plays into part within the culture here.
Cool.
I think for me, culture is like how all your experiences in your environment and your history shapes your ideas, and yeah, like what you say, like how you give meanings to things and what you associate them with.
Okay. Okay, so for me, culture is, I agree with Rebecca, it's part of your identity, it's how you see certain things in the world, it really, like, I don't know, shapes you as a person. So for me, culture is your tradition, your values as a person, and yeah, I guess that's it really. So moving on to our first question for tonight is American culture so dominant in the world from where you are from? Like so.
You mean in Colombia or in our respective
How about we do both?
countries?
In both. Okay, so let's start with, is American culture dominant in Colombia? Yes.
Yes.
Or just the concept of the United States or how it plays.
American.
Yeah, we get to be
No,
quiet.
No, but you
No,
actually
but would
should.
you like to define, like, very shortly,
Compared to-
what is American culture for you?
I mean, I think as far as a global audience goes, it's probably the TV programs, the music, again, the language, the slang, and also, I don't know, identifying yourself with certain values, as you guys were saying, and I think that's really prevalent here. Way more prevalent here than in Europe. After living in Madrid for a year, like, this is completely Americanized, especially in this area where we live in Champañero and Rosales.
Hi, Istanbul.
Hello, Istanbul.
Yeah, there's a huge presence of American culture. As far as the food, as far as just how people act.
We just had
All Latin America, because in Mexico it's the same.
Yeah, we just had a not slang, sorry, a side question. Is American slang prevalent in Colombia?
Yeah, they say que cool.
Yeah.
Like in the schools, they say
Really?
que cool. Yeah, a lot of the students, especially while I work in a bilingual school,
Hi,
so
from Italy.
they'll mix
Hi.
the two languages together. So yeah.
Also, in Spanish they say este man. I'm not sure if they like this man.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is specific in Colombia because I haven't traveled to other countries.
It's very Colombian.
So that's,
Yeah.
And I heard that they even call people, like, put names to their babies as Usnavi, which is US Navy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so that's more in the, I don't know,
Or the coastal areas because
Yeah.
I see that boat and it's
Hola.
called US Navy.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Let me take a moment to acknowledge all of my artist friends. Hi, friends. So there's a great musical, my favorite musical, called In the Heights, and the lead character's name is Usnavi, and I had never heard that before. And somebody sent a message, and there are a lot of names like that. A lot of Usnavis. There are a lot of actually, I had, like, people sent me passports, but there are a lot of names that have to do with
Algo
marine-
así.
marine ships or something like that, because that's what they see.
Mm.
But I wonder what that's also about. Is it because of the ships? Is it a symbol to them? Does that to us? U.S. is very focused on freedom, in whatever aspect that is. So is that a symbol? Does that symbolize freedom? Like what?
Yeah.
Like
Ah,
why do you
saludos,
pick that name?
California.
Yeah, because I still believe, I remember when I was living with a Colombian friend, and he said that they kind of see in children and during the school the American dream. And I said, like, what's American dream? Like having a house, a family, a dog? And he said, no, going to, have that, but in the United States. So people have also that kind of a vision or like goal to, want to go to the United States. So it's very, they admire the United States. Absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I get what you're saying, and I'm not American. I've been to America once when I was 4, and I don't remember. So, but for me, like, yes, I see what you're saying. They have like a lot of American influence, but also the Colombian culture is so strong that I never really noticed that much the American influence because their Colombian culture is way stronger.
We have a
Out of
question.
all the places I've traveled to, this has been the most. I've never been to Mexico. This has been the most Americanized.
Okay. We have a question. So the question is the American culture more prevalent in the capital city
Yeah, I
than
guess so.
that of capital, like the countryside?
Way more.
Yeah.
And where we live specifically.
But it doesn't, well, I don't know again, but for me it looks more like architecturally and whatever, it looks more European than American. Like just walking around the streets, that's not anything of how I would imagine America, but it's sort of in places looks more like Europe.
I mean, to me, it doesn't really seem American. And
Yeah.
I share, like, what you just said, that the Colombian culture is so strong, and in Latin America in general, the perception of the United States is generally not so positive.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of people who are really like
Anti-America.
anti-American.
Can we talk about that? Because
Yes.
I think originally we were going to start off talking about that, but what are the perceptions specifically of Americans? And before you say what you're going to say, just to remind the audience where you're from, so that so that they know where these perceptions are coming from.
Okay. So Germany is talking.
What up, represent?
Well, I think the perception is like a very like of an imperialist state, like of control and of invasion. So like I think it's like an historic political thing that the U.S. was and still is very prominent and very influential in Latin American politics, and people start to be like more independent and to they want to develop their own style of politics, their own way of doing things without the intervention of the US.
Yeah. Also, I think there's been quite a bit of a backlash considering what was it, the U.S. Secretary or somebody who called somebody who called South America the backyard of the United States.
I mean, because I've seen
So-
Mexico and Mexico away.
Yeah, so
It's
I
a
think
factory, no? It's
Yeah.
like manufacturing everything. They are like petroleum and all these things. Like they are the guys who produce the final product, for example, for gasoline. But we provide the raw material. So yeah.
So you being our neighbors, what is the perception? Donald Trump notwithstanding.
I think it's two-sided, like, because in one hand, like, for example, California, all these big companies like Apple, like successful people, like very hardworking people as well, no? Like, you have some, and in a way, the influence has been so strong that I think we have the same values, like at least in Mexico. Also, you relate success with someone that is working like super hard, like 80 hours a week, for example, which is also very American. Yeah, I will also say that it's here in Colombia.
Compared to Europe, it's much more here than
Yeah, for sure.
Because I was talking to a friend who just got a job, and he has right. And he has 15 work days, and that wouldn't happen in Europe. Like that's a very American ideal of how you live your standard of living.
I think that's the same in Australia though, because we have a very the more you work, the more successful, or like the more money you will have, and it's just sort of a work very busy environment.
But that seems really contradictory to the original Spanish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, also, can I, one example where I kind of really saw firsthand what my perception of how Americans are viewed in Colombia was when we went to Cartagena, which is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Colombia. And there's the touristic center, which is very, very beautiful, old historic buildings. And I don't know, you could walk into some cafes in there and think that you're in New York, but it's also one of the poorest apartments in Colombia, which hardly anybody knows because it seems like this amazing rich tourist place. But there is a lot of American tourists in Cartagena, very rich American tourists. And for me, just the interactions I saw between these tourists and for example, the Colombians working in the shops actually disgusted me because it was very, very disrespectful.
The one talking right now is from Australia. It was very disrespectful, and it kind of highlighted that attitude of imperialism that you were speaking about.
Can you tell what they did that specifically?
Well, for example, just walk into a cafe and instead of trying to speak in Spanish or pointing, just speaking very loud English at the person serving you. Not even just this, I don't know, lack of respect for you're in a different culture, you're in a Spanish-speaking country. You can't assume that everyone speaks English because that's not at all the case.
Also, Commonwealth is not their country. I mean, this is not your country.
Yes.
You're in their house.
Exactly. That's kind of what I mean. It's that sense of disrespect and
Even
maybe
though you think
imperialism.
that you own the whole world, you're not. Your country.
But I mean, I feel like I see the same.
Though.
Huh?
It's not just with Americans.
No.
It's with all
No.
the tourists.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think it has a lot to do too with when you're touring too. Like when you're touring somewhere, you're vacationing somewhere, usually people who do that have money.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not like just your average Joe that picks up and goes to South America with their entire family. Like it's possible, but generally speaking, you have an expendable income that allows you to do that. And of course with that type of situation, you tend to meet people who are more elitist. But I do experience the same thing. I think months ago, I was sitting in Starbucks, and in Starbucks, I just want to make sure I highlight again that I was in Starbucks. And
wasn't here a year ago, and now there are like 20.
There are quite a bit of them now, and it's only been here for like a year and 2 months. And I was in.
Hey, Chris. Chris just gave us a heads up.
Hey there. But I was in Starbucks and I was sitting there, and I was writing, and the guy, there were two guys. He knocked my purse off the back of my chair, and he picked it up and said, I'm sorry, or something in Spanish. And he was like, probably doesn't understand any English anyway, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, here's the thing. First of all, you're in Colombia, so there's that. Second of all, you're in an American, it's Starbucks. So the chances of people speaking English here,
Quite high.
pretty high. Also, I'm from America.
Yeah.
Surprise! Do you remember that? Yeah, I understand everything that you're saying, but there is this arrogance that
Yes.
Do you think it's, we just had a comment, do you think it's a class difference, a matter of a class difference, or no?
What do you
Yeah,
mean?
I would.
specifically with what I wonder.
Yeah. What,
Well, I have some comment that I was told by a Colombian friend. He told me that it's, if you have these classes, there's the division of the population of Bogota, for example, in 6 classes. The lower ones from 1 to 6, like estratos, estrato 1 hasta estrato 6, and the poorest ones, normally they are more or less. Well, no, let's start off with the middle ones, class 3 and 4. If there's something like a middle class in here, they are more orientated towards the States, the United States. And then, but the higher ones, we are studying in a University of Los Andes, which is like the high class university, and they are more like the students try to do internships or to do exchanges in Europe. So they are more like the higher classes are more focused on Europe, and the lower ones are focused on Mexico. That's what they told
It's
me.
interesting too, because you can see it in the status of the schools.
Can you,
The
sorry,
German school-
can you define the stratos?
Stratos?
We have a
literally
question.
stratas, yeah.
And it's also used in order to govern. So you have quarters of the city that are dedicated to, let's say, a poorer population, and there is strato 1, strato 2, and then the middle class and the high class ones. And you pay your taxes for your
What do you
the
mean
rent.
by the nomad?
what are we? What stratus?
What are we?
Well,
Okay.
We
So-
live in stratus 3 and 4.
So yeah,
99.
yeah.
You guys maybe live in higher, 4 or 5.
I think 4 or 5.
So it's like a district.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
where
like
you
a
live
district.
is a
It's like a
4.
zoning.
Yeah.
It's a zoning
Even before
situation.
And you get
5.
charged more.
More depending
So
on
the
where you
higher
live.
your strata, the more you get charged for all of your
Really?
services.
So
Yeah.
people assume that rich people only live in certain areas?
Yes.
That's the
I mean,
case.
that's
It's
true.
it's true.
That is
Yes.
true.
And also they
Because
know.
the-
They know, like, they. And I don't think it's a bad
Latin,
way.
no.
I don't think it's
No, we're not a
necessarily
2.
bad.
None of us are 2.
Because it does kind of balance it out. I mean, you have those people who are like, I work really hard for my money and I should deserve to keep all of it. And I'm not saying that's not true, but then you have all these people on the lower end who can't afford to pay $100 for electricity, can't afford to pay XYZ for all these other things. And it does kind of balance it out. It's a percentage it's essentially a percentage that you end up
Sort
paying.
of like
But
a progressive.
It's
Yeah.
gentrification at its best.
No, wait a
But I
second.
ask,
Wait a second.
because you limit that. I
Well,
don't know.
no, it's not. I
Poor
mean,
people can live in certain areas, not poor, but
I think it's just.
class.
I think the point is to make it affordable
For everyone.
for everyone.
So you have places. It's not just like this is only 6. Where I lived, I was living in something called an Estrato 6, but because of the neighborhood, because of the historical impact of the neighborhood, we paid Estrato 1.
Yeah, I've heard about that as
So
well.
they have areas within Estrato 6
Make it
that
affordable.
are affordable.
Yeah.
So it's not a direct.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like saying you have. But I think I think the reason that I like the idea of that is specifically because it does make it affordable for the people who need to have light.
Okay,
you know?
question.
Oh
So-
wait, hold on.
Okay,
So
we just
Chris
had a
would
comment
like
by
to say-
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, Chris would like to say Strata. So even though you're not here, you're still
Wait,
here.
why aren't you here, Chris? First of all, just why?
Get your ass
Please.
So his statement is stratas are really designed to balance utility payments so people with lower income pay less. But it ends up like a caste system, like a system of sorts, which I agree.
Yeah.
To some
And
degree,
also
it
because
does.
everybody knows that. Like, for example, in Mexico, they have this. Well, I think in every country they will have the same kind of division, but you don't know which one you belong. But here, everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
That's in Germany. It's the first time I hear about something
No, but
like
even
that.
for
Yeah, what you're saying, it's like subtle. Maybe in Germany, yes, you
Yeah,
said class
this is
division,
the-
but it's not like where do you live? Oh,
Yeah.
you live in that suburb? Okay, you're a
Yes.
stratus too.
Yeah, it's
Like,
But see, it's a
Really categorization.
but like it's the same in Sydney. Like Sydney has that exact same thing. That's yeah. Like they have certain perceptions. Oh, you come from Mount Druitt. Okay,
Well-
we
Yeah,
know
but I have a
what kind of a
question
person you are.
Yeah.
So say I'm earning really
Yeah, whatever,
good and I'm
Chris.
kind of a rich person, but I just want to live in strata 1 or 2 because I just
You can.
save
You can.
money.
You
So
can
they
do
can
that.
give me.
Yes, you can do that. And people
So
do
I
that.
actually like pushing away the poor
Yes.
people just because
Hola.
I, as a rich person, want
Yes,
to have
because
even.
You can.
La Candelaria is stratus 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I am
that's
sure
the-
that there are rich people living in La Candelaria because it has a lot of other.
But how is this then equal? Like, how is this just?
It's not.
It's the idea. It's just
It's the idea. It doesn't mean it works in practice.
Saludos,
It
Veracruz.
doesn't work at all.
Okay, should we go back on?
Yeah.
We have a question.
What's
Yes.
the question?
But I want maybe to answer the question. The question is there mobility in between the stratos? And I was told that actually in between in Colombia there's some kind of racism, but it's not the racism against black people. Maybe that's also a case in Cali or somewhere. Yeah. But in the capital, it's not that much about like the color of your skin, but it's more about the strato where you're living in. So that means like somebody of strato 5 or 6 would never talk, 5 or 6 would never talk to a person like of strato 2, 3 or something, because they would not hang around with them. And you were talking about gentrification. I think that's not the case, because in my class about urbanism, Colombia is a very.
Because all my friends are here.
But that's
So,
very good
pizza.
pizza.
Already though?
Well,
Yeah.
we hope so.
And in actually the zones, that normally in other cities and other capitals, there's like people moving from like low income areas to high, but in here they stay among them. I mean, there's this strato 6, for example, and they don't. There's no mixture.
They do not move.
They do not.
Yes,
they don't
we're
move.
ordering pizza.
Yeah, why not?
Papa Gray.
For example,
Say hi to Papa Gray.
How much do you need?
It's 35 más o menos, pero me pasa mi bolsa, papá.
So maybe, I mean, meanwhile we can answer some of the other
Yes.
questions. Maybe, hey guys,
What other question do we have?
for example, do you have an example of Colombian culture?
Like what is like culture, Colombian culture?
Oh God, where do you
Yes.
start?
What is music, for example? Like this is what I really like about Colombia, and like linking it to the presence of American culture. That thank God there's very hardly any like, I mean, you can find like American like R&B songs, but normally if you go out like a normal like Bogotan club night is with Colombian or with Latin American music. So you have Spanish speaking music, you have a lot of Colombian artists like Bomba Stereo, like Truck Chip Town, who are really, really good artists, J Balvin. And this is what I really like. Like in Germany, for instance, I mean, we have all sorts of music. But it's
We
very
don't know.
Americanized.
Sorry, Colombia doesn't have R&B,
But
or
you
what
know
they do,
what?
sort of. I don't
From my feeling,
But
the
it hurts me
Colombian
that they
R&B
don't.
is
Don't
strongly
worry, I
influenced or
know.
inspired in American R&B. I will also say the same about Spanish rap, Spanish reggaeton. They so influenced from American, like the
Reggaeton
videos,
is
how
not
they dress
Colombian
up.
R&B. It's not. It does
Don't.
Don't you get
Heidi is starting up,
No,
guys.
no.
If you look at the videos,
you
for
look at
example,
the
there's so
charts as
similarity.
well, they're very mixed. Like if you go on Spotify and go to Colombia, I've done it before. If you do that,
It's alright.
like it's a mix between American songs and Colombian songs as far as
No, unfortunately,
what the
Usher isn't
popular-
coming.
As far as like what the populace like, again, who can afford Spotify? Probably the wealthy.
Yeah,
people.
but I mean, if you listen to the radio, for instance, Oxygeno,
But you
there's
have-
no R&B,
But
there's
like,
no.
There's no
American
R&B.
stations 1039 They're like 3 American English stations.
Yeah, but
That's like
I feel like that
Okay.
music is really not Americanized.
Yeah.
It's really strong, and they're really proud of their music and their.
Can I say,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
music
I think like Colombian culture, it's hard to talk about just Colombian culture because
Yeah.
regionally it changes so much, and definitely including the music, you can really see that like there's different music that comes from all parts. Like from the coast, you have like champeta and vallenato, which people still listen to in Bogota, but it's from the coast.
Yeah.
And like coming back to what Daniel said, like maybe it's not really about racism in Bogota. I completely disagree. I actually think Colombians, because they have such cultural diversity between the regions, there's a lot of racism or discrimination internally.
Internal racism, there's a lot.
And I think it definitely exists in Bogota. So I think definitely there's racism against Black Afro-Colombians in Bogota.
For sure.
Yeah,
Definitely. But also the stratus thing. But I think because the cultures are so diverse, you just go to the next department and it's
A different
completely
identity.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like several different countries in one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an
Completely.
extremely diverse country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely.
Extremely
Yeah.
diverse.
Okay, so next question. How does media play a part in these perceptions? So we're
I guess
talking
all the
about
perceptions that we've had.
the
Did we
perception.
really?
We didn't really touch.
Did we really talk about perceptions? Like, what do you think people think of?
Okay,
Germans?
can we go? Okay, we're gonna go around the circle. Let's just briefly mention what we think is like the perception that Colombians have about foreigners.
Or of our country.
Or
Of
country
of
specific.
of what
Or
is
even like, I think we want to widen it. Like, what do you think people think about
foreigner.
your country?
Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about perceptions that Colombians have of foreigners, of what our respective countries think about Colombia, and then also just what you think or like what people think of your culture as
Yes.
well. Okay?
All right.
So let those three things. Come on, Germany.
Yeah, like
Let's go, Germany.
Germany number 2 will add something, I guess. I guess Germany. One of the first things is that it's a rich country. So you're always considered as a rich European if you say that you're from Germany. It's also about cars. I mean, that's the basic things, right? It's about cars. It's about being punctual. I mean, the professor I'm working with, he's always teasing me for coming late. Like, if I'm late for 2 or 3 minutes, I mean, that doesn't matter, I guess. But like we either have to, well, all of us have to bring chocolate.
You always come late.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's because I'm Colombianized or something.
That'll do it too.
No, but he's teasing me for coming late for 2 or 3 minutes. So he says like, that can't be true. You're not German because you're coming late. No, like, come on, like it's 2 or 3 minutes and we're in Colombia. Yeah, the perception of Germany, maybe we're not the best dancers. I guess. Well, I mean, you have a very good
exception to a rule.
You've
got a few exceptions.
Yeah, there is exceptions, but that's all about stereotypes. Right?
Yeah, that's
I
exactly
mean,
what it is.
what else? Well, what is typical German? I mean, maybe Rammstein. That's also the music. Going to the, you know.
True.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are famous, but nobody knows why that is. Actually, I mean, there's a lot of artists that are way more famous in Germany than Rammstein, but I can't. So yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
might pass on to.
Okay, Janelle.
I mean, I feel like
Janelle, sorry, can you say your name and your
my
country
name is Janelle, and
when
I'm
you start?
from America.
That
in
is
the United
your
States.
dad's request.
That makes sense. Hi, Daddy. So, I think we've kind of already touched on many of the stereotypes of America, but I do think that people think that we're arrogant, elitist, and a lot of people think we're lazy and entitled. I mean, that list can really go on and on, which I don't think I'm a lot of those things personally, but I know that's one of those, like you said, the stereotypes. That's what you fight, I think.
Well, my name is Rebecca. I'm from Germany, and to not repeat what my fellow countrymen, I would like to come back to a thing that is really bugging me.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know it.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know it.
Heidi is coming to talk.
I'm with you guys.
She is there.
Okay, ready? No, about the dancing thing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there is the stereotype that not only Germans but
And
everyone
foreigners.
outside Latin America is absolutely incapable of dancing and doing 3 steps in a row.
Yeah.
So
I got
whenever
every time. Yeah.
whenever I'm dancing with a Colombian or Latin American guy, it's always the same pattern. Hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Oh, but you dance good for a foreigner.
Yes.
Yes.
See, I really hate it when people start
I hate it because it has nothing to do if I'm a foreigner and I dance how I dance, because it's about to feel the music and to be part of the music, and it doesn't have anything to do about the place I've been born,
Amen.
or the language I speak.
Amen to that.
And it's really that people really don't understand, like really my like the dance school boss, however you want to call it, Mari, and she's a dancer and she's my friend, but even like for her I was like, but you're from Germany, like this is just why? Like this is not possible that you can actually do 3 steps in a row. Just because you're German, and I think that's so unjust. Like it's so stupid, and it really makes me really angry.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly it does. Me too, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Are there any other things?
Yeah, because you say two, right? So you say two, no? There's 2 things that really, no?
No, that's
no,
actually
okay.
that's actually like
The next one.
yeah. Please change that.
Okay. Well, I'm Marcela. I'm from Mexico, and for me it was very surprised because I think I have two stereotypes from Mexico, like the one from Europe, which is like donkeys and like cartels and drug wars and poor people and this kind of stuff. I think Colombia is very different. I think they really admire Mexico in a way, also because we've been like doing, I think, a good job with having all this diversity with a lot of indigenous people as well, like indigenous group, and then like doing an effort to keep it, not to maintain it, and to actually being kind of proud of it. So that's my feeling about what Colombian people think about Mexico.
That's nice. Yeah, that is nice. Yeah. Okay.
Lauren from the U.S. As long as I've been here, I guess I've gotten the most. If
Hola.
you know,
Samir says hello.
what?
Somebody says hello.
Oh,
That's just.
well, the main thing is like knowing more than the basic Spanish. They're always really surprised. I mean, I guess they perceive most of us to be ignorant travelers, which that's not necessarily always false.
Untrue, right?
But yeah, they expect us to be very ignorant of their culture, their food, the other places outside of Bogota. I guess I've received most of those in taxis with taxi drivers. But yeah,
Where from the USA are you from? Is the question.
North Carolina.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So, language,
we don't know anything about their culture. We don't really try to learn.
We don't try to learn.
Yeah. That they want to teach us, and I think that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
I think you should be an ambassador for your country, and if that's how you want to do it, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is? If you don't serve their stereotype of your country, they get really confused.
No, they're surprised, and they say it often.
They get really
They say
confused.
it very often. They're like, oh wow.
We've been asked, is there pulled pork in Colombia?
Yes, I had it for lunch the other day. It wasn't very good. It had like this weird gravy, but yeah, there's pulled pork. Child.
There you go. I have no idea what that is, but sure.
Even
You're also
though-
talking to a room of many vegetarians.
Like, get away from the pulled pork.
You, dear?
Okay, Genevieve from Australia. I'd say, well, firstly, everyone thinks I'm French, so I think I get landed more with the French stereotypes, and then when I say I'm Australian, they're confused. But generally here, I think people don't know very much about Australia, so I sometimes get the, what language do you speak in Australia question, and like, oh, you speak really good English? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Been working on it for years.
But aside from that, and also I share with Rebecca the dancing thing, but that's for any foreigner. Like, oh, really? Dance good for a foreigner? Oh, really? It's my job. That's good. But yeah, and also the Spanish thing. I guess they get a bit surprised if you can speak Spanish. But I think in general, there's not much knowledge of Australia here, so they can't stereotype us too much.
Question Australia is
Question in Australia is what?
I don't get it.
I don't get it. It just says, "Is the map have you down under?" What?
Great.
Anyway, sorry, I don't understand your question. I can't ask. Okay, so I have a very interesting take on this.
Yeah.
Because I was born in India, but I've lived in Australia my whole life. So there's like two identities and two types of stereotypes that I have to deal with. Double whammy, yes. So first of all, for foreigners in Colombia, I think, yes, I agree with the dancing thing. I agree with the Spanish thing. And also people get very confused when I tell them I'm from Australia. So I have to like explain my whole life story to them. Also, I think another thing that gets me is that everyone thinks I'm very rich.
Yeah,
That's a thing. So everyone, all the Colombians automatically just think, they assume, okay, so yes, so you're from Australia, you're foreigner.
You are tall as well.
And also I'm
They
tall,
connect
yeah.
height and
With wealth,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
also,
status.
not just that we're rich, that our
But the
parents pay for our whole life.
Exactly. They don't understand the values that like we're grown up with is that we go to university, we get jobs. We don't get money from our parents to do exchanges overseas. We don't get money to travel. That is all on us. So if we want to do that, we have jobs to pay for that. And they don't understand the fact that we're living on our own savings here in Colombia. So I think that's one thing that really gets me.
Every weekend.
And also, okay, so to just do the whole dual identity thing, for me, I think it's always been a bit hard because I've gotten sort of like fireballs from both sides, from the Indian side and from the Australian side, because I've always been classified as not Indian enough, but I've also been classified as not Australian enough. Because I think my experiences that I've had in life really define how I am as a person. And there are things in the Indian culture that I don't agree with, which there's like stuff to do with gender roles. So there's like, oh, you're a girl, so why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? So I don't agree with that. So then people define me not Indian enough. But then also there are things with the Australian culture that we don't agree with. We both don't agree with. So people are like, oh, you're not Australian. Like, I don't drink beer.
Or eat meat.
Or eat meat and or I'm not like a beach hippie. So I think so for me it's always been a bit tough answering the question, where are you from? So that's my take on it.
Can I add one more thing that we both get, and I'm sure you all get too? It's like the perception that you're a foreign woman
you have to be here to have a Colombian
Oh,
boyfriend.
yes.
Obviously. I mean,
Yes.
why else
I
would
get
you
that
come
every
So
time.
every
Yeah,
taxi ride I have had in Colombia, it has started with, "Oh, where are you from? I'm from Australia. Oh, so you're living? Yeah, who are you with? Do you have a Colombian boyfriend yet? No. Do you have a boyfriend in Australia? No.
yes.
So
Do
you're
you
just
want my phone
alone.
number?
So that is followed by, so you're alone, living here by yourself.
I think it makes sense for someone who is been in a country for more than 3 years.
Yeah.
No, because it's a good reason of why to stay
Yeah,
in a
sure.
country
Yeah,
for
sure.
more than 3 years.
Yeah.
So, to answer your
anyways.
question, what we're talking about are culture perceptions. So, we're talking about worldwide culture perceptions and how people perceive us. Somebody asked that question. So now that we've kind of identified some of those, because we are actually talking a lot and running out of time. So, how does the media play a part in these perceptions in terms of what you think that people,
In which country? Media in like our country? Or
Period.
Colombian?
How do you think the media plays a part in all of these perceptions? Because we talked about how
I
people
think-
think we are. essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a big role that the media plays, definitely, especially in advancing stereotypes and advancing sort of like the comical stereotypes, especially. So like with Australians, they're always like, oh yeah, everyone just goes around being chill and like not wearing shoes or wearing a tank top, and we all talk like this. Hey, how you going, mate? We don't. And not all Indians speak. We don't talk like this.
Okay, we're gonna sneak that in.
Okay. We don't do the bubble.
I'm done.
Damn you, Upper! Damn you!
No, I just had, today I had a conversation with Colombians, and it's actually like repeating all over again. Because when you as a foreigner say, when they ask you, what are you doing in Colombia, and how long are you here for? And I was like, I'm 3 months now in Colombia, and I just want to stay. Like, I don't really have like a deadline of like leaving the country. And then they get really surprised, like, why do you want to stay in Colombia? Like, why? If you're like from such an advanced country, why do you choose deliberately to live like in a mess or in a developing country?
I totally feel like I thought about. I mean,
And I felt
think
really
the same
like
way.
confused
I've been
about
asking
it.
that kind of things in Mexico. The foreigners in Mexico was asking that, like, why did you decide to leave Germany to Mexico? Come on, it's as many horrible the streets. You have a lot of traffic. Yeah, you have to move like 3 hours from your place to your work. Why? It's very interesting for me to understand like why it's so attractive
Also
about
people.
like our culture that makes another person
great
to
comment.
just decide just to get all these good things for things that even like safety. You don't feel that safety, and
The thing is about the good
We're also
things.
coming from an outsider's perspective, so we see this country differently.
That's why,
definitely.
like for us, the good things are different than for you. Like we were raised in total safety, security, material security as well. So I never really like worried about like I don't know
Getting robbed.
broken streets, getting robbed on the streets. As a woman, I walk on my own at 4 o'clock in the morning, which would be absolutely impossible here in Latin America. But what's way more important to me, and one of like the strongest reasons for me to say, well, I'm good here, like I could like stay here for a couple of years, is like the feeling that Colombia gives to me, like the warmth that the people have, the
Overall culture. So, but how do you think? I'm gonna go because I do want us to come back to this other one. So, how do you think though that the media plays a part in the culture perception of Colombia? Because obviously, people ask all those questions, even the comments that are popping up about cocaine, blah blah blah, even on the Periscope. But like, people, of course, asked those questions when we moved here. Like, of course, like what? Like, when I was here for about a month or two, and, you know, because it took that long for people to realize I lived here, they sent a message, and they were like, well, why would you choose to go somewhere where, you know, it's a developed...
Kill white people. Someone got
well, I mean, when I was leaving for Colombia in Australia, a lot of people were like, don't get kidnapped.
Don't die.
Yeah,
don't
like
die.
It was pretty much just like hug, you know, tears and everything. I can't believe you're leaving. Please don't die.
Yeah,
the standard leaving comment, like, please don't get kidnapped, please don't die, and you know, stay away from the cocaine.
But that is totally, well, not completely the fault of the media, but it has a lot to answer for. I mean,
I think
people don't know any other
exactly,
Colombia
and
except like Narcos.
Also, I think
maybe also like.
We were saying
you're right.
We were saying this before, Janelle and I, that it's not always just the media. It's how much effort you put in getting to know some place or getting to know someone. It's how much effort you put in to like researching or even traveling there and making your own opinion.
It's easier if your whole cinema is packed with American movies that just show you very nicely how the life is in the United States. But there are no such movies that show you how the life is in Colombia or Latin America.
I think the problem is that like there's not enough demand of it. There's not, people aren't interested. They don't want to know, and
maybe also their industries. Like yes, as you said, like from one side, like the people don't want to are not interested, but also the industries of that country, like maybe they don't have enough budget to make a good story, no? That sells.
So you look at Magia Salvaje, that's a great depiction of Colombia as far as picturesque. I'm not going to say the narrative is that great. As far as a picturesque narrative to come and travel or to come and see these beautiful places, like they have the material, but I don't know if they have the power to distribute
it. Is the issue.
So you should all watch that.
Magia Salvaje.
Magia Salvaje.
El abrazo de la serpiente.
This one is amazing.
Yeah, it's so nice. It changed your perception about Amazonas, how the tribes there and
amazing.
But also, can I just add, I think drug tourism is also a part to play in all of this perceptions, because there are so many tourists who will come here and will go to the Amazons to do ayahuasca and exactly go on the coca trail. Like that is a perception that people play a big part in. So that's
and then they take that home with them.
And they take it home with them, and that's what they distribute.
That perception is developed by the people who choose to do that. You're looking for something. You're not looking for the beauty in different cultures. You're looking for the negativity. And then you go back and say it's negative. Like you're gonna find what you look for.
No, totally. But I think for like a person outside of Colombia who's just, I don't know, in some other country and wants to know something about Colombia, the majority of the stuff you're going to find on the net in the media is about drugs and like sex and war. You're not going to find anything else probably unless you come here. Exactly. So you come here and figure that out.
The end result is
and also I think traveling with an open mind.
It is changing.
Yeah, it is changing. But I think
like with these movies we just said, that's like really changing.
Yeah, also because of for example, for me, when I was living in the Netherlands, I heard a lot of my friends from Europe like traveling to Colombia, and they were saying like, yes, amazing the nature, and I was like, what, really? Nature in Colombia is so nice. So for me it was
exactly.
They have that.
I mean,
I agree.
So, another question. I think we've got like 15 minutes, so we're gonna try and we'll probably do another episode of this because clearly we're not done. One of the questions from the States is, how is the Black Lives Matter movement perceived? And we've talked a little bit about that, and I know some people know about it. So for those of you who do know about it, how is it perceived in your country?
How about we quickly define or we explain what it is for people who do not know it?
Fabulous. Black Lives Movement is... I don't want to be a spokesperson, sorry, this is my personal opinion. But Black Lives Matter is a movement that started to, I guess, more or less highlight the problems. Highlight the problems specifically affecting Black lives. For example, A few years ago, a young man by the name of Trayvon Martin, which is kind of, he really wasn't the beginning, but he was the biggest case that started this movement going forward. But he was killed by a man who is, I believe, half white and half Hispanic. He was a not a police officer, but basically he acted as one. He saw him, he stereotyped him, and thought that he had drugs. Followed him, called the police, followed him against police orders, shot him, and killed him. And he was, I think, 16, don't let me lie, but he was 16, 17-ish. He was in high school, hadn't graduated yet. And later, he was acquitted of all charges because of, technically, the rule is the stand your ground rule, I believe, is how he was acquitted. Which is a law in Florida that allows you to basically kill someone if you feel like you're in danger, or if you can prove that you feel like you're in danger. So the problem is the Black Lives Movement then has moved toward highlighting these Black lives that are lost. A lot of it does have to do with police brutality. But in general, it's not just police brutality, but it's also in how those cases are treated. So if you weren't brown, then you probably would not have been acquitted. If you weren't brown, you probably wouldn't have even been stopped for that in the beginning. Or if you weren't brown, the assumption wouldn't be that you probably have a gun and you're going to kill somebody, instead of just being Trayvon Martin, who had a bag of Skittles and some tea and was trying to go to his house.
Wow.
So that's where the idea of the Black Lives Matter movement is. It's basically telling America that Black lives also matter, in addition to the lives that you, as America, as a country, as a government, tend to protect, but also Black lives matter as well.
Yeah.
So the question that was asked is, how is the Black Lives Matter movement perceived? And I believe the reason the question was asked is because there's also backlash in America, because they have now deemed it as a terrorist group, or not a terrorist, a hate group.
Right.
Because for some reason people think that when you say Black Lives Matter, it means and nobody else's does. So what is the perception in the countries that have heard of it, or for the people that have heard of it, what is the perception in your country?
Well, yeah, I mean, Australia should really learn from the positive effects from the movement.
Well, we have it in Australia.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it's really paid that much heed at all.
It's not like big, but like, for example, I follow it on Facebook, like Black Lives Matter, and yeah, like every few days they have a post about the Indigenous people of Australia, because we have a huge problem with deaths in custody, and as well with like police brutality and impunity, and just general discrimination against the Aboriginal population. And yeah, there are a few, like, I don't know what you want to call them, like revolutionary Indigenous people in Australia who are like promoting this Black Lives Matter movement. But I'd say, like, I hear about this on social media. In Australia, I don't hear of it at all. No. It's just like, what's that? I don't think...
How is it Colombia?
You guys have Indigenous people. But
Lauren, you had a whole opinion, and your eyes rolled all the way to the back of your head. So please share.
My thought of this Black Lives Matter being as, what did you call it? What did you say?
No. Let's be clear. Did not call it that. But it is called. Some people have called it a hate group. Yeah. They have labeled it as a hate group.
Okay, everything trends. Why can't that trend? They're highlighting an event that happened that was horrible. Like, in any other event that happens, they're going to highlight a specific group or a specific nation or a specific, I don't know, like what Facebook did with Paris, and they didn't do it with girls.
Okay.
But
anyway, let's go. Can we not?
A specific issue, and they want to talk about it. They want to create a conversation about it. They're not creating... I don't know, what did you say?
What is this word that you're using? Is this English? What is this? What are they talking about?
They want to create a dialogue, a conversation, and they want to make change.
Yeah.
What's the problem
with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, what is wrong with that?
I think
exactly.
any matter of highlighting it, whether it's with a hashtag or a demonstration, could evolve to effective solutions.
Yeah.
Agree.
Well, I mean, in the case of Germany, I don't know Janya, if you have something, but it's
Mm-mm.
the first time I hear
You've heard
about that
Yeah.
movement. So
I don't think it's really reached Asia.
maybe there is something
Yeah.
like that in Germany, but it's the first time I hear.
I heard
it definitely
something like
does
that.
exist, but it's just...
I heard something like that, but in this book
think
from
maybe in
Malcolm
England.
Gladwell, which is
I
called
think
which is called Outliers, I think. And it says about the snap decisions, no? Like how your stereotypes is like helping you to, if you see two people running, one is black and the other is white, then you will think that the white is just running because he wants to run, and the other is like maybe
Running because he did something
because
wrong.
he did something wrong, and then you would react, no?
Right.
So that's more kind of the how all these stereotypes affect your mind and how you're gonna act, no?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah. It's
can I say one example about Colombia? It's not really about the Black Lives Matter, but it's like a video that kind of went viral on Facebook a few weeks ago that happened in Bogota.
No, I think that's very Black Lives
Ah,
Matter.
but-
If you're
yes.
talking about the one I'm talking about.
Well, so it was like a guy and his friend, like two Afro-Colombians, just walking down the street doing absolutely nothing, just walking. And the police then stop them to ask if they can like check their bags and like check them basically. And then instead of, you know, they were like, well, why? We're just walking like every other Bogotano right now. Why are you stopping us? And then so the guy, one of the Afro-Colombians, started yelling at the police because he was like, why are you checking me just because I'm black? And someone started filming it. So actually they got this all on tape.
Yeah.
And it was just complete discrimination with like zero cause.
So what did the police say to them then?
They were just like, oh no, it's just like a routine
This is a
check or
routine
whatever.
check, yeah. Which is very common to say. Like you apply certain rules and certain laws to who you think needs to have that law, and then you make an assumption that other people are good. But yeah, his speech was like, as he was yelling, he was just like, but because I'm black, I'm considered a threat, which unfortunately is kind of the thing behind the Black Lives Matter is that the assumption. But I'm not necessarily saying that everybody who has been affected by that is racist. What I am saying is that our stereotypes and these perceptions, which is why we're having these conversations, these perceptions play a part in that. So maybe you don't sit at home and say, I hate all black people, but perhaps you make snap judgments, just like they say in the book. You make those snap judgments, and those snap judgments, those perceptions, those things that you think, then color the way you see a particular situation, as opposed to as a person, just a level-headed person, or people who are supposed to maintain justice, law, and order, approaching a situation where everybody's on an even playing field. That's completely not, it's not fair, and it affects people negatively.
Yeah, and it's so subconscious, no?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't say like, as you say, but it's just...
But have you personally experienced like discrimination in Colombia?
Yes. Yes. One of the questions that we did ask that we had, well, it's like number 11, so we're only on 4, which brings me back to the topic that we'll probably have another episode. But one of it was, what have you heard about your culture? And I think for me, nobody assumes I'm American. Everybody assumes I'm Afro-Colombian. Nobody assumes I'm American until I talk, and then I'm very American.
And then
But gotcha.
They think the same for me. They think I'm Colombian, and then I talk, and then I'm like, I'm from Australia.
Surprise.
They're like, no, please.
Yeah, well, they think I'm French, and then I talk, and then they still think I'm French.
You're French, your name?
I have no
Or
idea.
it's skin color, maybe.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
My bitch
I think
face.
it's. Okay, now that's another
That was
section.
But yeah, I think one of the things I was told as one of my students actually mentioned to me that he, at first, when he spoke to me, he was okay. Then he met me and he was like, okay, so you're not, okay, I thought you spoke Spanish. And I was like, well, I do, because you talked to me. But he was like, yeah, I was worried that you weren't going to speak English because I thought you were from somewhere else. And then when he saw me in person, he was like, oh, but you're black, so I didn't think that you would speak the right English, which I was like, really?
Wow.
That's quite interesting. The right English. Interesting. So yeah, he wasn't sure he wanted to hire me, but same guy. We've had conversations, and when I'm promoting don't off camera. When I'm promoting, when I'm trying to push them to talk and conversation, I asked him about places he wanted to travel, and I mentioned I really wanted to go to Jamaica because I have a friend who's Jamaican. I have a couple of friends who are Jamaican, and I really want to go. And his comment was like, "Oh no, I can't go there. There are too many black people."
Whoa.
So these are conversations that are had just casually. So yes, discrimination a lot, or there are a lot of, and they're also very comfortable, which is also
super comfortable.
But indiscriminating.
Yeah, no, they're and they're comfortable with telling you.
Yes.
Like, because he said it like he said, also, I'm going to have a glass of milk with my bowl of cereal. Like, he said it just
Too many black people.
There are too many black people. Yeah. And then as I sat there, because I had a moment, because I'm kind of a smart ass. But as I sat there, I was like, let me look at my hand. So no, I'm still wearing my black skin. Yeah. Great. I don't know if that changed. But he was like, well, not like you, but like the real black people. So then I'm like, so wait, let's keep going with this. you keep on with that shovel. Where are we going? Yeah. Where are we headed? Because then I don't know what that means. And then it becomes, then he said something along the lines like, oh, like not like you, the real black people, like the ones with the drugs and the dreads. And I'm, you guys have met my mom, so of course I pull up a picture of my mom, and he was like, right, dreads like that. And I was like, oh, that's a picture of my mom. Oh, so do you want to keep digging? Yeah. Or is this like, because we're almost at the center of the earth by now. Yeah. But yeah, he was just like, yeah, no, well, no, I didn't mean like your mom, like the big dreads, not like that. She's okay. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I'm glad that you approve of my black mother from America with the small dreads, who doesn't do drugs. I don't, and speaks really good English. I don't, but I mean, you can laugh at it now, but it's not funny.
It's not funny.
Those are the perceptions that people, and I'm thinking, even you in Colombia, I come from a very middle-class family. I'm very educated. Like, even I showed a picture of my father's house, and he was like, oh, that's your dad's house? Like, you have a big house. Like, it also didn't dawn on him that as a black person, even in America, that I could have a large house or I could have my own car. Like, he thought I rode the bus. And I was like, no, and I was like, okay, so, and I asked, is that because, you were doing service to this community by sharing but like, is that because, and I asked because, I travel by bus here. So is that a city culture? Because, is that why you asked? And he was just like, no, I just didn't know you could afford a car. Oh, so, I mean, and again, he's super comfortable with not only making the judgments, not only making the stereotypes, but he's equally as comfortable with sharing them, and is surprised that I'm upset about it. Because he genuinely got upset that I was irritated. Like, he was just like, I mean, you know what I mean. Yeah, no, I do. That's why I'm irritated.
No, but can I just add, I don't know whether that's just Colombians or like it's something to do with him, because I have faced the same type of discrimination being from India, and the same type of stereotypes come up with me. Here? Not here, because they don't have that much knowledge of India, but like in Australia, everywhere else I've traveled, like in Asia, and sometimes when I traveled it briefly in Europe, I got the same sort of treatment. And it's, people are very comfortable in making the stereotype to your face and thinking it's true, that it's like, it's completely fine to say it. It's common knowledge that it's like, oh, it's completely fine that I said this to you because you're going to agree with me. No.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't agree with you, and B, no, not okay.
And no, not okay. It is not okay to tell me that my food stinks. It is not okay to tell me that, oh, so are you going to get an arranged marriage as well? It is not okay to tell me that, oh, but you're not as dark as the rest of them. So no, it's, I agree with you, Janelle. Like, it's completely like not okay to just sit there and be like, oh yeah, we know everything about the world and how people function everywhere.
But no. That kind of, go ahead. Just saying, coming as obviously a white person,
they think you should agree with them. Yeah. Like, they're so bewildered why you don't have the same feelings about other races as they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
what are you talking about? Like you should, you know, like
you know,
like,
right?
didn't you go to the meeting last week? Like, weren't you at the club meeting? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like
our waxing lady. She's
God.
Paisa. She's from Medellin, like white Colombian lady. And we were just, like chatting, waxing my eyebrows. And she's like, so what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm going to Choco, which is the Afro-Colombian department in Colombia. And I was like, oh, have you been? She's like, oh, God, no, there's way too many black people.
yeah.
Edgar likes the episode.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. That happens.
She's like, well, they drink a lot. You should be careful.
Yeah.
Right, because nobody drinks here.
Nobody in Colombia drinks.
There's no alcohol.
Yeah,
people don't just randomly get beers and alcohol in a bottle walking down the street. So clearly we're going to break this up and perhaps pick up here because we're at the end of the episode, which is kind of sad because I think that you guys have, I know because I've talked to all of them. So I know that they have a lot more to say. And perhaps maybe other people will join us and talk about it. Where we'll talk about some other things, specifically Paris and how that was perceived here. Which I wish we could have talked about it now because it's so relevant. But perhaps you will join us in the next 2 weeks because I am fairly certain I know some hungry nomads, maybe one or two. But we do have several other questions. Please stop eating your hand. We have several other questions.
No, I just wanted to say, because this is my last
I was going to get to that
episode, and I just wanted to say something regarding the Paris situation.
Oh, here it goes.
All lives matter. It doesn't matter if you're black, brown, white, or yellow, or whatever you want to stereotype it as. All lives matter. Doesn't matter if you're living in Beirut. Doesn't matter you're living in Nigeria, Paris, USA. They matter. And I just want to say that.
What's really sad is she had way more than that to say.
Yes.
And it's all really good what she had to say. So hopefully we can maybe get her to buzz in on Facebook, or something like Chris was doing. Hi, Chris again.
Yeah, why aren't you here? You may as well have been.
So yes, we still have 7 or 8 other questions. So I do hope that you will subscribe to our Nomad Connection YouTube channel. Please share this because our hope is that these conversations will open up other dialogues and help dispel some of these myths and stereotypes. And then we will continue the conversation. Also, you can catch our website at www.nomads9.wix.com/nomad-connection. And last but not least, it is, first of all, we just passed our last birthday, I think, of the birthday season. Marcella's birthday. And our sweet Mandish has ended her tour here in Colombia, so she will be leaving us, and this is her last episode before she moves to Nomad alumni status. So please, send her some messages, send her some love. Hopefully we will catch you guys the next episode. Everybody, peace out.
Peace out.
Bye.
Me too. What'd you say?
Oh,